everyone. Welcome back to a special edition of Tunnel Vision. We are live in Las Vegas at the Mandalay Bay for Big Ten Media Days, wrapping up on day 3. But we do have, with Connor Morrisette, a very special guest, Jay Hilbrands. He's the Deputy Athletic Director and Chief of Staff for USC Athletics. Jay, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, Ryan, appreciate it. Connor, good to see you guys. Thanks for coming out and covering the Trojans here in Vegas.
It's a little different than Indianapolis. So, it's nice to be close.
Hey, we're great with it.
Yeah, like no time zone switch
Yep.
or anything. USC and all the West Coast schools usually have to, jump over time zones. So let everyone else kind of come out here. But yeah, it's funny to hear the different radio groups, people talking about what time it is.
Yeah, the experience of it all for them. Yeah.
It's a little bit different. How's your Vegas experience been so far?
Yeah, it's been good. It's a quick trip for us, as you're saying, Ryan, in and out. Great for our guys, too, with schedules that they have, back on campus. And so we can be efficient with the trip out and, really a great opportunity for them and, to have everybody in one spot and thankful for all of our local media that came out to cover. But the trip's been great. It really starts to turn up from here with camp breaking next week, which will be great and get back into a routine with fall camp.
Yeah, great to be with you, Jay. Thanks so much for taking the time. We wanted to talk with you, the administrator, about some administrative things.
Sure.
So right now, the future of the college football playoff, it's all the rage. Is it 12 teams? Will it be 16? Who gets in? How do they get in? Does USC have an official stance? Is there something that if this was the proposal, USC would fully back it, or are you guys kind of just going day by day, taking in all the information and taking a wait-and-see approach?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously a lot of conversation the last couple of days and weeks around media days across the country, with the playoff, and certainly probably the latter, Connor. The AQ model that is talked about a lot here with, the commissioner and coaches, could make sense for sure, right? And certainly understand that. I think, should we all get to a 9-conference game schedule, I think that we'd be open to exploring a lot of different formats, right? And know that, our goal is always to position USC for the best, spot possible to have access to the playoff and know that, with the 9 conference games and, the AQ format that there could be a road there, but also, just the consistency in that conference game schedule and what that looks like is an important factor. So I think, that could be a road too, and would be open to, what those proposals could look like.
And then not to get too deep into the weeds, but it seems like the biggest sticking point for the Big Ten are those 4 automatic qualifiers,
right,
where if those go into effect, then if the SEC only continues to play the 8 league games, that's not as big of a deal. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment on it. And certainly there's a lot of variables at play with it, right? And even over the course of the last 6 to 8 weeks, there's been a lot of conversation and change in proposals of format. But yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
We heard Lincoln Riley talk about the Notre Dame rivalry when he's at the big podium in the other room addressing the Big Ten Network and everyone here. And he talked about those 4 automatic qualifiers being significant to USC potentially playing Notre Dame in the future. Right now, the Big Ten's kind of on an island with those 4 automatic qualifiers. The SEC wants something else. Those other conferences want something else. If those 4 AQs don't go into effect, not to put you on the spot, but is that mean it's going to be trouble for that Notre Dame USC rivalry moving forward, or is there still maybe some work that could go into that, and that game could continue if the 4 AQs aren't implemented?
Yeah, for sure, work that there's roads outside of that too, right? I think that's a substantial part of the conversation, but there's a lot of things that we're exploring with that. We certainly understand and appreciate the rivalry a ton. We know how much it means to our fans, how much it means to our student athletes, right? Our supporters and college football as a whole. And Coach Riley addressed that today, right? And just his own journey personally and from a college football rivalry standpoint. And so that's something that, we want to continue, had really, healthy conversations with Notre Dame, and, we'll continue those. And that is something that, we certainly understand the magnitude of that game and want to continue to provide that opportunity and for our fans and our student athletes and all stakeholders really, at SC and across college football. And so we'll continue the dialogue.
One of the other things Lincoln Riley talked about when he did his opening, obviously Mike Leach and how he's advocating for him to make it to the College Football Hall of Fame. Brought up Pete Carroll too, and I don't know if that was, if you guys assisted with that, or what's, as far as the athletic department goes, is that something you guys have talked about, wanting Pete Carroll to be able to make it to the Hall of Fame? The requirement is 10 years, and he was a head coach for 9.
Yeah. No, great question, Ryan. And I would say, yeah, there's shared advocacy in that for sure, right? Obviously, what Coach Carroll did here at USC is really remarkable, right? And so we, stand beside Coach Riley in the remarks that he made today to advocate for Coach Carroll, and that's something that is obviously very important to recognize the contributions he made not only at USC but across college football, and something that that we hope that the committee would consider.
Yeah, you make USC fans will be happy. You get Reggie Bush back. You get Pete Carroll in the Hall of Fame. They'll all love that.
Yes, it would be great, right? And obviously for the game, and you look at those years and the success, and really, carrying on the tradition and building that and foundation. It's something that we continue to look back on, with such fond memories, and that's attributed to Coach Carroll and the success that he had and foundation that he built and continued here.
USC signed a big deal with Learfield
Yeah.
in the offseason. That's significant. Can you explain to our listeners, our viewers, what that partnership allows you guys to do that maybe you couldn't do in the past?
Yeah, we're really excited about that, right? The partnership is going to be really impactful when we can get that off the ground, and you just look at what Learfield does across the college space, and I think there's a lot of things obviously happening in the college athletics landscape that we need a multimedia rights partner to be progressive with us and think ahead of the curve, and Learfield definitely exemplifies that, and provides us some really unique opportunities. We look at NIL, and you look at just what we can do in our market in Los Angeles, having somebody from an MMR partner standpoint that can really be at the forefront with us. It will be a transformational partnership, and we're excited to get that off the ground.
Yeah, that is a very significant one, which is great to see. USC, of course, opted into the house settlement, paying student athletes started earlier this month. That's $20.5 million for this first year. I guess first, the crazy new era of college sports. How did that transition go? I know USC's been at the forefront of this, but just I have a follow up as well. But just to begin, how's the rev share going at USC?
Yeah, it's going well, and I would say obviously there's a lot happening across college athletics conference. The Big Ten piece, it's been discussed a lot here at media days, but I feel like our leadership team alongside our coaches, right? We put in just a ton of time in the last several months. We had an internal working group really to best position us. There wasn't clarity on a timeline when that may or may not have been approved and passed, and just the clarity more than anything is great, so we can have a direction. And obviously there's still a lot to be worked out, but I feel like we did a lot of proactive work together to create alignment and across the entire university, right? Obviously what we do in athletics is so important to the culture of our campus, and our donors, fans, alumni, et cetera. And so we really we wanted to make sure that we positioned ourselves for however things shook out to be best positioned, and feel really confident in the plan that we have because of the work that we put in. And certainly there's going to be a lot of changes, and we need to be nimble to continue to adapt to the changes of college athletics, and feel like with the resources that we have, the campus support, community support, that we can continue to be at the forefront.
What are some aspects of the house settlement that people aren't talking about? Everyone is fixated on the $20.5 million and how you're going to budget that out, and I won't ask you to get into the details. I don't think any school has released that information, at least in the Power Four, but so that's a huge part of it. Everyone knows about that. What do people not know about the house?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, obviously the piece that you brought up, but I think one of the elements of the settlement is increased scholarship opportunities, right? You look at roster limits, roster sizes, right, and the changes that were implemented because of the house settlement. At SC, you look at the variance in scholarship cost, even across the footprint of the Big Ten conference, right?
Yep.
And that can vary drastically across our conference, let alone the country and our peer institutions that we're competing against. So I think that's one where you look at the cost of a scholarship at SC and what it could look like for a a full ride scholarship at another institution, and those numbers could be very different, right? Obviously speaks to the impact of what it means to get a degree from USC, and we certainly understand and appreciate the value of that and know that. But I think it's, something that probably isn't talked about enough, and something that's top of mind for us as we're making decisions to obviously best position ourselves, but also, the fiscal responsibility we have, in that as well.
Jay, I've been covering this team for a long time, and
Yeah.
a lot of criticisms of athletic directors in the past, but it just usually USC was kind of playing catch up, and I felt like in this landscape right now, where the whole sport, the whole everything has changed so quickly, I felt like you guys were much better vision, like ahead of the curve. Everything that's been working on. What kind of challenges were there, knowing that this sport's been changing daily? You were walking over here, and there's an executive order coming out about what collectives and stuff. Like it just seems like it's changing so much, and you guys have been able to navigate it well. But how challenging has that been?
Yeah, I think it's hard wherever you are for sure, right? Just because you get clarity maybe one day and then a week later something changes, and I think it just speaks to our ability to adapt, right? And I think being able to do that, you have to have a foundation and a culture that people believe in internally, and just a huge credit to Jen, Jen Cohen, our athletic director, and what she's done, right, and the impact in just shy of 2 years, the vision that she has, right? The alignment she's been able to create across campus, with our board, with our stakeholders, right? She's as elite as they come as far as athletic directors, and I think people are seeing that, right? We certainly see it every day internally, the culture that she's built and the environment she's created for staff, for student athletes, right? Just the buy-in from campus. And our community as a whole, but also externally, you're seeing that, right? And I think it's transcended into everything that we're doing. You look at this past year, finishing second in the Learfield, Directors Cup, the highest ever finish for USC, right? Is amazing. That's a testament to the alignment we have across the board under Jen's leadership. But it really takes all of us to be, rolling in the same direction to do that, right? And Jen's somebody who is a bold leader, right? And she has significant experience, right? And you have to stay true to who you are and who you want to be, because there's times of rockiness and there's changes and external factors we can't control, but you have to come back to your foundation and to your base. And Jen's done a great job of implementing that and building on that, right? And we just feel really, really fortunate to be in the spot that we're in as an institution, part of the Big Ten Conference, right? Nationally, as these things change, we know that change is inevitable, right? That's going to continue to happen. But if you are, if you're proactive and you're willing to adapt to that, we feel like we can be positioned, continue to be positioned for success. And we saw that this year, in the competition field, in the classroom. You look at, what our student athletes did academically. It really is impressive, and a huge testament to the belief that we have in our plan and our process and where we're going from here.
Has anything changed with House of Victory since the House settlement? I saw the College Sports Commission just changed some of their guidance, so that is obviously a big boost to you and everyone else who has a collective. How has HOV's role changed?
Yeah, HOV, obviously you look at the impact that they've made, right? That was part of the alignment that was a priority for our staff, right? Just the last 18 months here, and just how important that was to the retention of our student athletes, right? Recruitment of student athletes and the opportunities we're providing there. They've been unbelievable, right? And so, as the House settlement and other changes have been implemented, we've been in very close conversation there. There's a lot to be, worked through as it relates to House of Victory, but, that we remain, very, very close with them, and, what that looks like will be, announced and communicated, down the road. And there's still clarity on the national level around collectives, and people are going different routes with that. But we'll share more in the coming weeks as it relates to HOV. But they've been so impactful, and you just look at what they've done. In the 18 to 24 months that we've been here, it's really second to none.
And then one more from me. I wanted to go back to Notre Dame for a second.
Yeah.
You mentioned that conversations are ongoing and something could change tomorrow, but
Right.
Do you feel, does Jen feel like there's a deadline coming where right now they're not on the schedule for 2026? And if they're not by a certain time, does that mean that the game won't be played in 2026? Do you have that deadline, or is it just kind of
Yeah,
fluid?
yeah, it's a fair question, Connor. I wouldn't say that. Hey, if by September 1st, right? Like, scheduling is really challenging when you look at the pieces of the puzzle, right? And from a non-conference standpoint, and when there's a lot of factors outside your control, is the SEC going to go to 9 conference games? And if they do, how does that change the Big Ten's non-conference, opponents and schedules for our peers? So to answer your question, there's not a clear deadline. Obviously, that we're acting with a sense of urgency, given you want to be able to have certainty on what that looks like. But we haven't said we need to have a hard and fast decision by this time. But you need to be able to make necessary changes both ways, right? For us and Notre Dame, depending on where that lands. But obviously, the hope is that we can figure that out where it makes sense for us to continue that, and we'll continue to have those discussions with
Yeah,
Notre Dame.
and with that in mind, a 1 year deal makes a lot of sense. So hopefully, common sense prevails.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously that's been widely reported, and I think there's been a lot of just conversations around the length of an extension and those pieces. But there's just so many changes happening, right? Ryan, you asked about that just in college sports, take college football out of it, college sports in general.
Yeah.
And so, because there's not a lot of certainty on where some of these things will land, it's best to, for in our opinion, to anything long term, right? You start to get into potential challenging situations because you can make a decision without having the full breadth of information, at the time. And obviously the college football playoff and potential expansion and format, et cetera, plays heavily into that.
Sweet. Well, Jay, we really appreciate you carving out some time for us here in Las Vegas. I know it's a quick trip for you. Are you going back tonight, or like
Going back tonight.
so you
Yeah.
guys flew in this morning and out tonight?
In and out same day. Yeah.
Wow.
Try to be efficient with the time. But yeah, we feel really fortunate to be here, and thanks for the opportunity. Can't say enough for what you both do and your colleagues to cover USC, and looking forward to the year ahead.
Well, thanks, Jay. For again, it's great to hear from you, and awesome job with everything. And good luck going into the season. I know it's going to be a big one. USC fans will be watching intently. But thanks again for coming on.
Thanks so much, and fight on.
All right, everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and we will talk to you next time.